We're the Taylors, and I'm Gerald.
I'm Linda.
And we are here to talk to you today about our Certified Welding Inspector CWI courses that we offer through our company, Real Educational Services, Inc. The history with AWS, I go all the way back to 1964 when I first started welding. I was a member, joined AWS. And I remember in 1976 they came out with the CWI test and the certification. But I didn't get around to even doing it, didn't think I needed it when I was working at the college. But in 1979, I changed jobs and I decided, I really need to get that certification. Back in those days, from 76 all the way up to 1985, they didn't have a practical as we see it and know it today. The practical was a 100-question test. They called it a practical. So in 1985, they came out with the replicas and the tools that they began to use for a 46-question test, practical test.
Now, Real Educational Services has been in business for quite a while, since 1979. And we know there's a lot of other training providers out there, but we're the only ones that have 41 years experience presenting the courses. So take a look at that. And we've also taken the CWI and senior CWI tests several times over. If you ask some people, they've only taken the test once, and it might have been back in 1997.
Yeah.
So the test changes a lot over the years, and that's why we elect to renew by testing instead of by using our professional development hours.
And too, guys, we never failed any of the tests. So we take that just to stay abreast and somewhat checking AWS to make sure they're giving the test on what they say they're supposed to be giving it on as well. Now, I had a training class in 1985. I had to go to state of Georgia nuclear power plant to run a training school for about 10 people. And I had no idea what they were going to be experiencing with their code test, or not the code test, but the practical test. So I called Miami and told them I'm coming down Monday to take the test, and they fussed a little bit, but I went down Monday, took the test, and found out what the test looked like, what kind of tools they were using. I came back to Mississippi, and I made 15 sets out of my scrap from our mechanical testing lab. Of course, that meant they were not all the same, but I had the questions would be the same, but I had 15 sets of answers. It was a little complicated, but it worked, and we got people prepared. And those people that was in that first class, they weren't surprised when they came in with a practical test.
Now, I actually took my courses with Gerald before the CWI. I lined myself up for several of our courses, just like I recommend in our brochure, to lead up to the CWI. And I think that helped me a lot because I got to look at in depth at some of those topics prior to getting the CWI class, which is a lot of information jammed into a couple of weeks. So a lot of people I see coming in the classroom are not prepared for what's coming at them. And it's because they haven't done any studies prior to taking the CWI. Unfortunately, most people think they can just jump right into the CWI, pass it, and be on their way. But it's not that easy. And as the years go by, I've seen it get more difficult all the time. So that's why we're trying to encourage people to do more before coming to class, because we only want you to take this test once. We don't want you to have to take it 4 or 5 times to get your CWI card. Some people give up in that process, and we don't want to see you give up on what you want to do.
It is a hard test, and my son worked with me for years before he finished college, and he told me that, and he's a mechanical engineer, and he told me that the CWI test that he took was harder than any test that he took in college. So a lot of people, they know somebody that's a CWI, so if they can do it, sure they can do it. They can do it. Everybody can do it that wants to do it, but you've got to do a lot of work.
In 1997, AWS introduced the senior CWI program, Senior Certified Welding Inspector. The first class was held in Kansas City and tested the following day. It was a 1-week class, and they tested the very following day. That was the same year that I came on board in Mississippi, started taking Gerald's classes in January, and did not get finished with my CWI until June. So I took all of the classes, like I said, leading up to it, with the last class being Certified Welding Inspector in Mississippi. And after that, I came on to help Gerald teach and develop courses.
Yes. And I was one of those in that first Kansas City class that was where I took my senior CWI test in 1997. So those were two good things that happened to me during that time. The program's all about is we want you to succeed by passing. We update the course to meet your needs. In the beginning, it was a 5-day course, and in the 80s, early 80s, 79, 80, when I first started teaching, the people that were coming to the class were primarily already inspectors that wanted to be certified. And then later on, it's wannabe inspectors and with various degrees of not so much experience, minimum amounts that jump in. So we moved to the 5 to the 7 day, and we had an option, you go either one. And then we also moved on up to the 10 day. And in the beginning with the 10 day, we taught that 10 straight days with no weekend, just 10 straight days. But the reason for these changes is your success. That's our first priority.
I remember coming to Gerald saying 5 days is not enough. So I talked him into adding 2 days to it. And eventually it turned into 10 days straight, which turned out to be quite a haul.
Yeah, it's a big thing. It's a major thing. Of all the certifications that both of us have had during these years, this one is the most important and probably the hardest one that we have to take.